Is that what it was in 2010?
Huh?
Is that what it was in
It was
2010?
extremely expensive, yes.
Oh,
Well, they have accommodations, meals, transportation.
I think we need to know.
yeah. I never imagined that it was that much. I was just counting, you know, tickets sold, Skybox tickets, and the auction.
When's the proposed date?
They were talking sometime in February. They're still setting it up because they're doing maybe like the Ottawa Valley or the area.
So then are we able to, maybe for like the next time you're here, possibly get the numbers from previously, see how many people attended, and then see what the narrow cost is, kind of?
My gut says we need a bigger arena or something like that.
I did not realize because I didn't sit here in February of 2010. Nice that they want to come back, but
Well, I think council, see what the numbers say, right?
yeah,
That's what it is. So.
but obviously we didn't, there's no way we made money.
We managed to make a little bit.
Well,
I
we could potentially, if we know the exact number, you could almost pre-sell everything, and if we know we're
Oh, that's what we did.
like going
That's what they
forward,
did,
yeah.
Okay, then.
Okay, Canada Day celebrations, the flyer there. So just a matter of keeping in touch with everybody, and
How's Lisa doing with getting volunteers?
I was talking to her. I'm not 100% sure on the volunteer portion of it, but yeah, we've been in contact with her, so we'll just keep.
Excellent.
So maybe in case someone asks, Kevin, maybe you're aware of it. I probably went in to get my ticket for that. My debit card, and you only take cash or check.
For what?
Canada Day's dinner on the bridge.
Yes, because the money goes to the credit union. I wanted to pay it here.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Centennial Park, the music park starts tomorrow night. Guy Jameson is guiding us through, and we're have a summer student helping with the equipment setup, take down kind of deal. Tour information booth, volunteers are still working back and forth. Our students are in on weekends, just maybe 5-6 hours on the weekends, kind of deal, just to keep it open. Legion Field splash pad up and running, getting a great response, lots of usage. Ball and soccer, real good turnouts. Farmers market is up there, so we have lots of events on Friday nights. We have farmers market. We have at least 2 ball games on the ball diamond on Friday nights, plus a splash pad, so it's getting utilized.
That's good. Great. If I may, Mr. Chair, Kevin, I was supposed to pass along a message to you from the people that run the ball club. They are very impressed with how the fields look and said that you are so easy to work with, and they really appreciate everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Just a quick one, Kevin. So where have you gone splash pad for the signs? What you have it up here?
Yeah, and I need some guidance with that.
Do we know what Renfrews say?
Renfrew has no signage
Oh,
at their splash pad.
does Pembroke?
That I'm not aware of. So that's kind of, I'm not sure what maybe hours posted for sure. Must be a parent occupied by with the children there. Like just a few, like
Parent supervising.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking almost consistent, like when you go to like a hotel and then to your pool and stuff, they kind of have like a small little bulletin of like 10 points of just like, obviously like no open cuts on it, no dogs, rough housing, things like that. They're just standard. I found a pretty good one I could share with everyone.
But I think under video surveillance is an important message.
Yeah.
I think that's one of those deterrents for anybody thinking about doing something nefarious. But yeah, I think you've got it. Hours of operation, supervised at all. Children will be supervised at all times. I would have a cap on that, maybe like children under. And
8, 9,
I didn't know if 10 was too old.
I don't know. Is 10 too old for that splash pad?
There's no age that's too old for the
No.
splash pad.
No,
I would just
saying-
leave
No,
it
no,
blank
just-
and just say supervised children at all times.
So that might be just a,
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, the problem is you could have kids coming that just live there and they're only 10 years old, right?
I know.
Well, that's
Kids
why
on a
some splash
bicycle, they
pads.
go up there.
A bicycle up and
Well,
Yeah.
some splash pads you go to, they'll even have like regulations on like what your kid could wear. So if they're in diapers, they have to be like, I'm fully serious. Like there's X amount of things. Like so if like Reagan went, she has to have her waterproof like underwater one on, and that's just so if it leaks, it doesn't go everywhere, right? Like
It's a good note.
yeah, I'm fully serious. I looked up splash pad signs for like a couple minutes the other day. They have a lot.
also Terry Hilke is
It's,
donating his time. We're going to open up front railing up, and it's just a matter of
that is so kind.
just putting a set of stairs down, and it just opens up the front of the gazebo, the area front. That'll make a big difference.
That's very kind of Terry, and we all should make sure that we send our thanks. I think that this is going to make it very user-friendly for parents.
And we have some extra stop blocks, if you want to call them that, to the right-hand side behind the tennis courts. We're going to move them, I think, just in front of the tennis courts, just to block vehicles that they can't go towards the splash pad. It's not eliminating it, but it's going to stop them at the parking lot. So that's a few things we're going to do up there. There's one item on Dana's report that she needs, I guess, a motion today on the allocation of the Main Street Rehabilitation Fund at the Rusty Glens, the village discount, the variety. So that was something she asked me just to mention.
Perhaps, Mr. Chair, this is an item under new and unfinished, but since Kevin is here, we might as well discuss it. It's number 4, community improvement plan application from Zorf Funeral Homes. They sent a really nice picture of what it's going to look like. I think that this is a very fair request. We've traditionally done 50%. They've asked for $1,000. To me, I think this fits right into what this fund was intended for. Yeah. So, any concerns, conversation?
no. Fine.
No, their proposal was
Yeah.
very good.
So, Sandra, can we have a resolution for the? Oh, it's done. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. You notice that she's not speaking because she doesn't want Hootie to go to her. Great. Good. Thank you. Fantastic. So you can tell Dana yes.
Is there any other questions from the council?
Speak now, forever hold your
No.
peace. Thanks, Kevin.
All good, Kevin. All good.
Goodbye, Kevin.
Before somebody asks. We have a woodpecker.
It's the fan. I don't know what is it.
Steve.
Just hitting aside.
Please pause for station identification.
Yeah.
Yeah, now won't turn.
Councillor Cision, who's this council or committee meeting being sponsored by today?
Mosey, but I
You
don't have,
don't have it?
I don't have the, well, actually, it could be by the Ontario Ombudsman.
Very nice,
Ontario.
very nice. Welcome back, Steve.
Thank you. So since I've only been back for a week and a half, instead of reporting on anything that's been going on, I thought I would just simply in a chosen report, just what my short-term goals are going forward for the next bit. So the CIO and I met with County Health Unit this morning. It was just basically wording and stuff in the bylaw that they had problems with. I'll fix that up, and you will have a copy of the bylaw, which we stopped working on in February, for your next meeting. Everyone will have a copy of it beforehand.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Something occurred to me last night. We're doing the escape room after our council meeting tonight, and I realized that we said that you could not smoke anywhere in that field, but if they're having an event, should we perhaps have a butt stop for the curling club in a discreet place so that they don't have to walk all the way around the corner?
I'll pull up my measuring tape and find something
That would,
suitable.
thank you. I just don't want, if they're having an event, let's make it as easy on them as possible, because those are their fundraisers and that's what keeps them going.
And we don't want butts all over the ground.
And we do not want butts all over the ground. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm also working on the dog issue. We're down 3/4 of the tags that have been issued in other years. So that's one of the projects I'm going to be working on. And of course, we had an MTO audit just before I left, and I've got a bunch of things that we have to fix in our parking program. It's just paperwork and administrative things that I never thought we had to have, but apparently we do. What was something about, Brian? A retention policy, which says how long we have to keep paperwork for and those kind of things. So
Getting rid of the red tape, right?
that's it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. Any questions?
I have asked the CAO if either after this meeting or later on, if I could have about 5 minutes in camera with council to discuss a couple of other matters. So I'm not sure what he wants to do.
At the council's discretion, we do have a closed session set for the end of the meeting today.
So you're around this afternoon, you're not going too far?
I'm here.
Okay, then could we ask the
Yeah,
CEO
most
to
certainly.
contact you when we're at that point?
Yep.
Because sometimes these meetings go tickety-boo and sometimes, we spend some time discussing stuff.
We have a page and a half.
I've heard that.
And we have a page and a half. That's right.
I've heard a rumor about that. Yeah, so I'll be around here somewhere. Well, not here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Thanks, Dave.
Well, Bill isn't here yet. You want to go ahead with Brian?
Yep.
I only had 2 items. You've all seen the financial reports for the month.
Yep.
Everything was pretty much on track. The only other item was a recommendation that I brought forward with respect to the renewal on our 2019 insurance policy that renews on July 1st.
So basically, if we accept this recommendation now, for next year, you'll put it out almost as an RFP to all of our locals,
That's correct.
to our local brokers, to see what their feeling is, but right now, time is a bit short for that process.
Correct.
Okay,
And there are some significant claims being managed at the moment as well.
yes, okay. Not the best time to be changed, okay. I think that's fair.
Anything else?
Anything else? Unless council has something.
All right.
Again, we're going to go to correspondence with Bill. I think he wants to speak on the signs there. the ATV. So we skip the correspondence and go on to noon and 10. No, that's Bill's
Oh, hang on, no, hang on. So in correspondence, number one, in A, obviously our resolution for Bill C-68, which Councillor Cision made me read in its entirety and finally doing so, got a lot of traction. So I think that that was an excellent resolution to put out. In correspondence B, the Bill 108, this is with regards to the OMB being switched over to something called LPAT. And what we've now realized through our planning office at the County of Renfrew is that basically they're going with the name LPAT, but they are going to use the OMB rules. So on the surface, it's just new letterhead. So I know that this also gained a lot of traction across the province of Ontario. But at our last meeting, we did talk about that there were some adjustments being made. And as of the days all blend together now, I think as of last Wednesday, we were told that we are going to OMB rules.
Mainly, it seems that the larger municipalities are the ones that are objecting.
Yes. And I think
And
that's where it
I'm saying, what is wrong?
that's where it grew legs. Yeah. Yeah.
Noon unfinished?
Yeah.
We're waiting on Bill?
Well, I think,
Also for the snow drifters at the moment.
oh, then Mr. Chair, I think Councillor Cision has a presentation for us with regards to number 2, the firearms ban. For the people on YouTube right now, this is Bill C-71, which is gaining traction with our Canadian Parliament. And Councillor Cision is going to take us through some of the reasons that this bill is not necessary and does not fulfill a mandate of sorts. So I think that opens you up to your presentation.
It does, it does. I believe that 71 will be receiving royal assent in the very short future.
May I make a suggestion?
Okay.
Do you want to turn your laptop to Hootie?
Okay, it's going to be, I think, on
It
the
will,
screen.
will this go there?
It's on, it should be on there.
Wow.
So if we're all
My
set up.
apologies,
No problem,
Councillor.
Jen,
You continue.
No problem at all.
Wow,
Technology.
isn't that something?
So what kind of initiated my interest in doing it at a municipal level and what we're discussing today, over the past few weeks, I've heard of, and months, people in Ottawa and Kingston and Toronto bringing forth motions to support Bill C-71. And I've been doing a lot of research on it right from the time it was introduced. And I've yet to see any reason why it's required at all. And so that's why I'm going to touch on it. So with the Ottawa shootings, the Toronto shootings, I'll get into how the legal law-abiding gun owner isn't responsible for those actions. So why future firearms bans will do nothing for public safety. So I'm gonna talk about the classifications of firearms in Canada. So right now, as it stands, there's non-restricted firearms, which are hunting rifles and shotguns. And the lengths and such, 18.6 inches for the length of the barrel. There's a lot of technicalities and stuff where I'm not going to get in too far with the non-restricted, but for the most part, they're commonly used for hunting and trap shooting and such. There's also the restricted firearms, which are handguns with a barrel length greater than 105 millimeters And some semi-automatic rifles, such as the AR-15, are a restricted firearm. And currently, right now in Canada, handguns with a barrel length of 105 millimeters or less are prohibited. Handguns that discharge 25 or 32 caliber ammunition are prohibited as well. And fully automatic firearms are also prohibited. Now, the first two, the handguns, right now, I believe that the prohibited handguns you can still take to a range if you were grandfathered in. The handgun classification, I believe, was in 95 when those two went to the prohib status. The fully automatic firearms were in 68, I believe, for the prohibition of that. So one thing I'm going to touch on a little bit while I still have it fresh. The reason why the 25 and 32 calibers were initially taken to the prohib status was because they were led to believe, either at the RCMP, that they were inaccurate. So they went ahead and put them in a prohib classification, and later to find out that in the international shooting community, they use 25 caliber firearms. So that point should be remembered for what I'm going to be discussing in a little bit. So what it takes to legally own a firearm in Canada. So to own a non-restricted firearm, you must be at least 18 years of age and have a firearm possession acquisition license. You have to take an RCMP approved Canadian firearm safety course. You have to pass a written exam and a practical exam. You have to submit your license application and photo to the RCMP and pass a daily background check through the Canadian Police Information Center, which is CPIC. So I've had one done today because I have my pal. Every 24 hours there is a background check done on every firearms license holder in Canada. So to get a restricted possession acquisition license, you still have to be 18 years of age. You must have a valid PAL or successful completion of the Canadian Firearm Safety Course, the regular. Pass a written exam, practical exam, submit a license application with photo to the RCMP, along with a character reference, or 2 character references, what you need. And you have to pass your daily background check through the Canadian Police Information Center, which is CPIC. And in the prohib, you must be grandfathered. There's no current way to obtain a prohib license. So after 68, like I say, there are a very, very small number of people, I believe, with the prohib for the full auto, which are locked in a safe right now and parts locked in a different part of it, not to be locked together for that end of it. And I believe it was 95-ish for the less than 105 millimeter length of handgun, or the 25 and 32 caliber handguns. So who is affected by firearm laws? Well, there's right now with the PAL in Canada, the possession acquisition license, there's 2,186,161. Canadians with a restricted possession acquisition license, there's 608,649. Canadians with a prohib license, 48,399. Violent criminals who obey firearms laws, 0. Plus, countless more unlicensed Canadians who shoot safely and responsibly under direct supervision and control of a licensed firearm owner. So what I've been doing in the last few years, because I do love shooting, sport shooting, I've been trying to introduce new people to it, to show them how safe and how good it is, enjoyable of a pastime and passion. So I can take anybody out to the range. And there's no age limit. It's as long as it's up to the discretion of the firearms license holder to be safely with the shooter. So my daughter at the age of 6 was comfortably able to shoot a 22 from a bench position. That's totally okay. That's all right. So it's something we share as a dad and daughter kind of thing.
Can I ask the question, if I may, Mr. Chair, of this presentation? I didn't really look at the previous slide when you showed it to me earlier, and now I'm interested. So the 48,000 are inside the 608,000, and the 608,000 are within the 2.1 million, correct?
That's
They're not on top of. Because if you have to have a PAL to have an RPAL,
the RPAL is separate from the PAL
They are?
because because you can have a regular PAL without having an RPAL. So everybody with the RPAL is.
okay, so these are in addition to
In
people with the
addition
PAL,
to.
not included.
That's right.
Because the
Yeah.
total is
Yeah.
completely different in that case,
That's right.
right?
That's exactly right, for sure.
I just
And-
wanted to clarify that.
About there's 2.2 million, so that's where that adds up to the 2.1%. So yes,
Okay, so very impressive numbers.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So here's some quick statistics. The firearms commerce, hunting and shooting sports are about $5 billion per year industry in Canada. Canada has 4,500 firearm businesses employing about 25,000 people. Canada has in excess of 1,400 shooting ranges. Women are increasingly active in the shooting sports, and it's one of the few competitive sports where women and men compete on an equal basis. So Canada has 2.2 million hunters and sports shooters compared to 1.5 million golfers, 1.3 million ice hockey players, making it our largest sporting pastime.
Trina made the fade in, fade out dramatic.
So the handguns and AR-15 rifles. So AR first off stands for Armalite, not assault rifle or automatic rifle. So AR. The AR is so common. The reason why there's so many of them out there, and I'll touch a little bit on it before we get into the logistics. Smith & Wesson makes an AR. Ruger makes an AR. Remington makes an AR-15. Bushmaster. I don't know how many different manufacturers are, but it could be, there's a lot. So the reason why there's so many out there is because of its function, and a lot of these manufacturers have decided to go off a platform that just worked. So it's not just one manufacturer that's trying to push any sort of thing. A lot of manufacturers have adapted it because it works well. Okay, so it's just not just one manufacturer specific to this AR-15. So in Canada, the AR has to be registered, and so do handguns. And they fall into very strict laws regarding their storage, use, and transportation. They must be stored in a safe, and in a safe world, the safe trumps everything else. Of course, you can just put it in your safe, the safe's locked, it's fine. And if not, it's got to be trigger locked and stored in an opaque lock container, only in the address on which it's registered. There's a few other ways to fasten it, but the restricted firearms are very, very strict in the storage of them. So double locked for sure if it's outside of the safe. And they cannot be used to hunt. And this is kind of where it starts to all fit together for me, where they can't be used to hunt. Because up until '68 till they started doing the classification of firearms. Legally in Ontario, you could hunt with a handgun because it wasn't a restricted firearm at that time. They were always registered, I believe, since the 30s, but it wasn't restricted. So you could hunt with that firearm. And the AR-15, you cannot hunt with it today, but there's no good reason, from what I can see, why it cannot be used as a hunting rifle. I own one in a 223-556, and it's extremely accurate. It just runs well. The function of it is fantastic. It's just a good running firearm. It would be an ideal hunting firearm here in Canada because of its durability and ease of operation. And when I say ease of operation, it's where the safety aspects are put into play. My wife has very sore fingers. She has like a eczema sort of thing on her hands. She has a hard time functioning or using certain firearms. She loves to do it, but she can use the AR very safely at the range. She can keep it pointed down in a safe direction. She can grab that charging handle with her two big fingers and pull them back, and she can get to the safety easily with her thumb. Everything turns and translates into safety. So I really can't see a good, valid reason why it should not be allowed to hunt, to be used for hunting, because it's a rifle. It throws a projectile at the end of the barrel, just like any other firearm
And
does.
based on the principle of throw enough of it out, that the deer will run into one sooner or later.
But there again, it's only a semi-automatic
Oh,
rifle
it's not a
too.
fully automatic.
And that's exactly what I was getting at.
That'd be fun.
So in Canada, the full automatics have been really prohibited
Mhm.
since 1968. So there, and that's where it really bothers me, because we'll get touching on a little bit further, but to throw this into a prohibition status, that it becomes absolutely essentially useless to us. So right now, a restricted firearm can only be used in an approved range for target practice. In Canada, you are only legally allowed to load a firearm in a place where it may be legally discharged. So if you're within town limits, if you're within city limits, just by putting that ammunition into that firearm is already illegal. There's no way that any other law or regulation is going to enhance that, because you're not even allowed to put the ammo in the gun within those places. So,
And what were you saying, how many feet from a road?
Well, you have to be off the road line, so it's 33, 66, depending on the road. You can't be within the road, you have to be either over the fence or if you're not over the fence, and you have to be
that's
off.
with a
But I-
non-restricted.
Yeah, but
With a
I think that's
non-restricted.
another point.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So
consider.
there are a lot of firearms laws in this country already pertaining to safety. And like I say, so if you have somebody in the city of Ottawa or the city of Toronto, even here in the town of Biggenville, that put a live cartridge into their chamber, that is already an illegal act in itself. So now we'll go on to the need to authorization to transport, which is an ATT from the CFO or Chief Firearms Officer. So in order for me to take my firearm as it stands yet this morning from my house to the range, I must have my authorization to transport. Sport shooters in the restricted world are allowed to have these right now. If you are just a collector, you don't get an ATT. So right now we are allowed to take the firearm to approved ranges, peace officers, gunsmiths, gun shows, and borders. And the place of acquisition for home. When we go back to the borders, and it's like I say, you just don't jump in your vehicle with your gun, say, I'm going to the United States, going to go to the CBSA, and say, here I am with my gun. It requires at least a 90-day notice and approval, and you have to be going to a sanctioned match somewhere south of the border to do so. So with Bill C-71, what it does, and I'll skip one bullet here and I'll go back to the ATT. So this is where it's starting to get really, really unappetizing. It removes the conditions from the ATTs, such as transporting to peace officers, gunsmiths, gun shows, and borders. Like, it makes absolutely no sense to remove those parts from our authorization transport.
So my question would be, how, if I want to, if I've got firearms that I want to turn in, as they do in Toronto, they have the program,
Yes.
guns for whatever. So what this is saying is I can't take
That's right.
my gun from my home to a police station to turn it in.
What you'll have to do is call the CFO and get what's called a short-term ATT. So they will still issue it, but you have to phone ahead of time to get the short-term ATT from the CFO in order to do so. So it just adds another step, and we're all about finding efficiencies and stuff in the last while of trying to, it's not making anything more efficient.
This is just more red tape.
It's more red tape is all it is.
And when you think that the city of Toronto had more turn-ins this year than ever before in this program, I don't know why, but that's a lot of paperwork and red tape to drive, 10 minutes to your local division and turn in your firearm.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if anybody has any questions as I'm talking here, by all means, for sure, I hope I don't skip over anything, because sometimes I do know some points and I just assume other people do. So I really, if you need something else.
I don't know what's stupid on YouTube, but I didn't know that AR didn't stand for, I thought AR-15s were automatic. I thought that's what it meant.
Well, and a lot of people do, and this is why I really think some education has to be put out to people, right? And that's what I really, really would like to accomplish today. And I really hope my points are accurate. I've researched a pile of them. Sometimes I get a little nervous on camera, of course, and we've tried to do what we can. But it's about the education. And remember, everything, guys, from the first or second page, anybody that's legally owning a firearm today has had a background check done today and tomorrow and the next day. So if I were to commit any crime whatsoever that was any danger or detriment to society, the police would be at my door within minutes to remove all my firearms from my place.
I think this is one of the most, this resolution is extremely important, do not get me wrong, but I think that is, number one, I didn't know that, and I have a firearms license. My husband has one. So what you're saying is if I went down to the corner store and I stole a pack of gum and I got caught,
yes,
and the Killaloe detachment charged me with shoplifting, by tomorrow, there would be somebody at my door, or the day after, perhaps.
Depending on the type of crime that is done. So if you're a threat, like any kind of domestic dispute.
Well, that's a no-brainer.
But I don't know the logistics of what crime has to happen in order for you to have your firearms taken. If you just jaywalk, they're not going to come and take your guns. So, no, but that's what I'm trying to say, right? Like you have to.
I only use that, I was just trying to find a non-violent crime, but I do wonder if you commit any crime, I wonder how far they go.
Well, and the thing is, the police already know you have a firearm.
Exactly.
And that's where, when you have to have certain guns registered or it's all adding red tape. It's adding red tape. It's adding red tape because once you have your possession acquisition license, it would be fair to say that you own a firearm. So.
Why would you get it if you didn't?
Exactly. So, yes, it's a bunch of red tape. A bunch of red tape.
But I said it earlier, if you want to be a responsible gun owner, you're going to take your PAL, you're going to know how to clean that firearm, you're going to know how to pass it safely under a fence, you're going to know not to point it at somebody.
That's right.
And this bill just doesn't speak to the problem that they're trying to speak to. And I think you're going to get to that in our resolution. But I think that anybody around here that has legal firearms, they're not the problem.
No, and it comes to, and I said this statement this morning, it's optical enhancing politics. And what it does is make the people look like or the government at the time, look like they're doing something, but they're not doing anything. They're not accomplishing anything by putting more restriction on the already citizen that has had his background check done today. Like there's not another member in society in Canada that falls into this criteria than a firearms owner. So I really can't get that point through hard enough.
So I thought the ARs was fully automatic, but they're not.
No, and
Restrict the size of magazine.
it's the perception, right? It's the perception. And Hollywood, believe it or not, plays a big role in how people think when it regards to firearms. And we'll get to that a little bit later on too. Because right now, it's modeled similar to the issue that we are using currently in our Canadian military, a C7, I believe, and a C8. But in no way, shape, or form does that civilian AR-15 rifle go to a full automatic at all. It's not.
Or an AK-47.
That's right. That's right. They have. It's very similar in appearance, but that's where it stops, right? You can't move. So, and I'll just kind of go off on a little side note here too. I have fired fully automatic firearms in Bud's gun shop in Tennessee. And I shot the paper and I safely put it down. And I went home at the end of the day. It was no different than pulling the trigger once, twice, whatever. It basically wasted the ammo. To myself,
Right.
I didn't do any more damage to that paper target with the automatic firearm as I did with the single shot
There's
firearm.
sport in that either.
So,
Right? The sport is how accurate can I be on that target? Not how many bullets can I put in the paper.
but really, when you think about it, whether you're sending one or a magazine of 30, which is prohibited in Canada as well, for a semi-automatic firearm, that's a center fire, you can only have 5 if it's not just a caliber. So magazine restrictions. So when I take this restricted firearm to the range, which I can only do with my firearms license, my authorization to transport, my registration papers, all this stuff together, and I can go to this range or this bank of sand where I can only discharge this firearm, I'm still limited to a 5-round magazine in a center fire rifle.
All right. A lot of restrictions.
There's a lot of restrictions.
All
So,
right.
Another part I want to touch on with Bill C-71, it allows the reclassification of firearms through the Canadian Firearms Program, eliminating the oversight of the governor in council. That's a scary part. Because what that essentially is doing is removing our elected officials from overseeing what the RCMP is doing with the classification. And remember how I said earlier, Up until 68, we could legally hunt in Ontario with a handgun. You cannot hunt with a restricted firearm. So what happens at this point now, if they decide, okay, now we don't like a lever action firearm, for instance, even though it's a repeating rifle, it's doing a cycle. If that goes into a restricted category by the Canadian Firearms Program, it's no longer legally allowed to hunt with. It's the reclassification of the firearms that really, it's another point that really is really hard to swallow from somebody that has already had their police background checked today. And it requires, and this is where it's going to hit home here in Bonnechere Valley, it requires non-restricted firearm purchases to get a reference number and a transfer from the CFO. So what that does, so I'm part of the Eganville and District Sportsman's Club, and I'm also part of the Madawaska Valley Sportsman's Club. And Madawaska just had their 3rd annual gun show. And Eganville, which is going to happen right here in our little arena, which we really know we have to find new ways to keep using it, because at budget time, we noticed that we've really got to use every aspect of that arena, try to get as much to it as we can to make sure it's a viable part of our community. And one of those things that really help us out in the summer months when there's no ice there is the Eganville Gun Show. And the Eganville Gun Show has been going on for 25 years, and it's always been on a Saturday and a Sunday. The CFO is Monday to Friday. So what happens when you want to buy a non-restricted firearm from your local gun show? It's a deterrent. It's a deterrent. It's a deterrent. That's all it is. It's not going to solve anything, because that person that is legally buying it with their PAL, you still have to show your PAL in order to purchase a non-restricted firearm. So if I bought one from you and you had one, I would have to verify that you had it. Its expiry date was not expired. You check it over. It's my legal requirement to only purchase from a PAL holding, or sell to a PAL holding individual. So CFO, Monday to Friday, 8 to 4, whatever it is, 8 to 5 or 9 to 5. Eganville Gun Show, Saturday and Sunday, August 17th and 18th, I believe it is this year. So how many people are going to be able to purchase their firearm at the show this year?
I think one thing that people don't understand as well is that you can't even buy ammunition without your PAL.
In Ontario, you cannot.
I think there are so many restrictions put in place so that we are safe and respectable firearms owners. But I just think that, there are so many aspects to this that just don't make sense.
Just to clarify on that, Tim, so that basically what you're saying is if the law passes through at the gun show, you wouldn't be allowed to purchase a gun, right?
You can purchase it. So how it works, and I'll elaborate. If I go to buy a restricted firearm right now,
but even non-restricted,
it's going to lead to it. So when I go to buy a restricted firearm, so what I do is I go to my local gun store, in which I buy a lot of, is at Perkins Guns and Ammo. There's your perk. Plug for today.
This council meeting brought to you
this
by,
council meeting is brought to you by Perkins Guns and Ammo. So what I'll do is I'll go pick up my firearm. So then what the local vendor has to do is put that firearm aside. And usually if it's either a Saturday or Sunday when I get time to go and check out my local gun store, nothing can be done with that firearm until he phones the CFO and gets a reference and a transfer. So
that's for restricted.
For restricted.
Okay.
So in order to, so I've already had my background check done. I'm already in possession of other restricted firearms, but if I buy a new one, it still has to be on hold until the CFO does a transfer. And in the past, I've seen it take up to 3 weeks in order for the pile of transfers to go through where that store owner could legally release that firearm to me to take home. So this is the problem with the non-restricted as well. So if you go to the gun show and purchase your firearm, in order to get your reference number and your transfer, because you have to have your PAL validated by the CFO now, not just by you looking at it, and because you know, if I did something wrong, they're taking my possession acquisition license. If I commit a crime, they're taking that license. So that's not enough anymore with Bill C-71. They actually have to have this transfer. And that's where, who knows how long it's going to take and how many tax dollars it's going to cost to have a CFO actually transferring your firearm to her, to him, to him.
So just to clarify, then you would not be able to go in, buy a gun and take it out with you that day?
No, you could pay for it. It's got to stay with that person until it's transferred.
And if that vendor is in Empire or wherever they're from,
That's right.
then you have to go to the
Either
location.
either go to their location or have it shipped to your door. For sure.
Yeah, that's. sort of
That's
takes-
for non-restricted.
That's for non-restricted. That'll be coming up for non-restricted, yes.
So
Okay,
there's the
let's-
appeal for gun shows.
Let's,
So now, and they'd also have to keep on record of every transaction for 20 years when you sell a firearm when you're a business. So I can remember back in the day in our little local municipality, we had access to purchasing firearms. Actually, there was a gun broker here just a little while ago, but at the local home hardware store, my dad purchased before, and it's becoming so much red tape for the business owners that it's not viable anymore. You know, it's not practical. And to look at that end of it alone, the loss of our businesses, from a community that has already passed their police background check this morning, you know, and if we lose the gun show, look at the amount of businesses that are going to hurt in this area alone. Like how many people come to Eganville on gun show weekend? I worked at it, and there's over 1,000 people on Saturday alone that walk through that door.
I was going to say, I think there's stats from a couple of years ago were about 1,500 over the entirety of the weekend.
That's right.
So, and those people ostensibly are buying gas. They might get a meal, even if they ate at the canteen at our arena. But it's also the usage of the arena. It's a great location. I know that the vendors love it. And so just walking around and speaking to them, they like coming to Eganville. It's a good show. It's a solid weekend for them. And this, I mean, why bother having a gun show if this happens?
Well,
Right?
and that's what it's going to do.
Just saying, like,
And the gun show is what really keeps our range alive at the Eganville District
I
Sportsman's
have no
Club.
doubt. Yeah.
It's what buys all the range sheds. It's what buys the everything that's on site and the mortgage has been bought and paid for by the Eganville Gun Show.
Really.
It has. We're able to keep our rates, user rates down because of the offset of the show. So if we want to keep it attractive to families and people to use our facility, we do need it. We do need it out there, right? It's the biggest fundraiser for sure. So what's going to happen and the upcoming political platform is the ban of the AR-15, and that's been talked of. They want to do a confiscation or a buyback program of the AR-15 is what was released on Friday. And this is all new information to me, and I hope I'm on the right ballpark because it changes so rapidly this last little while. I don't think it's fair to the people. We're losing a lot of our freedoms in this country through different types of laws and legislations. And, you know, Bob Peltzer, our previous councillor, sat at this chair where Jack is and said to do no harm. You know, when we first got sworn in, and I'll never forget that, to do no harm when we're setting up laws and bylaws for our community. And this totally reeks of doing harm. It does. So just wanted to, you know, talk on that. So it's also with the reclassification, you don't know what firearm is on their target list next. And that in itself is scary. So that's where the hunters with their, because I've heard this too, they want to ban all semi-automatic firearms. Well, there's a lot of hunters that use semi-automatic firearms. A lot of farmers, right? You got a detachable mag, you've got something, a bear coming after your horses, Jen. You want something that you can get it in, get it out, and stop what's destroying your personal property.
Absolutely.
Or your livestock or your pets.
Exactly.
Your pets, right? And the sport shooters risk their way of losing their way of life. And I said to you earlier, I was a FUD back in the day. And what I mean by FUD, it's that guy with the single shot shotgun that, oh, I don't need that black gun, or I don't need that handgun. What do I need that for? You know what? It's Canada. We don't have to say we need anything. When I discovered how open the sport shooting community is to be inclusive with all of my family, and I'm going to step back a minute. When my kids were small, I had them in T-ball, and I had them in Little League softball. And we played right up here at the Legion Field. And we went to tournaments over the years. And when my son got to 12, we ended up doing a baseball tournament or softball tournament out at Lake Dory. And the coach's son was the pitcher. And the opposing team was so vicious that they had that little boy bawling his eyes out at 12 years old. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to put my kids into this. I've heard it at the hockey games, and I've heard it at different stuff, right? You see the hockey going. I took my kids to the range. And when I took my kids to the range, the kids are walking along, and this group of people, and they're all older, and they see some young people coming to enjoy their passionate pastime. And they say, come here, come and try this. Oh my God, your kids are so good. They're so fantastic. Can he come over here and try this? Can he come over here and try that? Can she come over here and try that? It's just that setting of inclusiveness that is far, far underachieved in so much other sports that are out there. So it does bring a fairly close part to my heart there. So going back, and I hope I didn't leave too much out. There's my daughter, Jenna. And what she has in her hands there is an AR-22. And we're at Bud's Gun Shop in Tennessee. And when I go back to the prohibition of certain devices by the RCMP and how it kind of scares me that things are gone off of Hollywood. She has a 22 in her hands right there, and it's got a suppressor on it. I don't know if you can hear it. Any volume there, Brian? Okay, there's no volume.
But
So-
I think you might want to say that we watched this earlier and it's really loud. So silencer or no silencer, it's very loud. As you can see, Jenna's also wearing ear protection.
So with that little video, you can get with a suppressor on a 22 down to the point where it's very somewhat quiet, but it's not going to be able to function in the semi-automatic fire with that level of reduction of power from the charge. So I do have it on this one. The tick, that's her. So you can still hear it quite easily. So all that suppressor is doing, and I'll go here to Owen. He's got an AR-15 in a 45 ACP with a suppressor on it as well. So it's not James Bond. It's not this, I'm going to sneak into the neighbor's place and do all this crazy exotic things. All it does is reduce the noise of the firearm to the point where it basically doesn't make your ears bleed. It's a safety device as far as I'm concerned. Yet now our RCMP says that's prohibited. And don't forget, they also prohibited the 25 caliber in the pistol just because they said it was inaccurate and later found out that our international sports shooting community was using that caliber. So I think if it's okay with everybody, I'd like to do a form of a resolution today to call upon the federal government to invest more resources into the criminal element of firearm shooting crimes rather than focus time, energy, and resources on the law-abiding citizen, which does nothing for public safety.
I'll move that all day long.
Thank you.
Excellent work, Councillor Cision. I will say your passion and your knowledge of this particular faculty is excellent. I think for all of us to have you sitting at this table, educating us, for lack of a better term. I do think that we need to give a shout out to your lovely wife, Trina, for helping out with the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
It's not my strong suit either. So thank you so much to Trina for helping out. And of course, she's very passionate about this as well.
She is.
When we spoke about this at our last meeting and Councillor Cision said that he was going to do this resolution, I'm going to repeat it because I think it's worth repeating. There is a movie from 1997 called The American President. And in that movie, Annette Bening says to, I believe, Martin Sheen, congratulations, you're putting a crime bill in place that doesn't address crime. So I totally agree with this. I don't think that this addresses the nature of the problem. These are not legal guns being used to shoot up downtown Toronto. And I think that's definitely a bill worth passing. How do we solve that problem? But as you have said several times, why is this on the backs of the people that get checked out every day, that have background checks, that have reference checks, that have restrictions on not only how we use the gun, but how we store the gun? I think every single gun that we own has a trigger lock and it's in a safe. So, I mean, with the ammo in a different safe.
The ammo is to be always stored separately from any fire.
I mean, I don't know how much more we could do as a society. So I think this was an excellent presentation. Thank you very much. I think that we're obviously all five of us shoot. So I think that this is definitely something near and dear to all of our hearts to implore the Canadian government to do something different. Sandra, could we take the resolution and move it this evening? And specific, I think in the resolution, it needs to mention C71, please. Thank you.
I was sitting here thinking, this is a little sidebar. Thank God we did something 2 years ago. Daughters in Saskatchewan had 3 guns when she was at home, 22, 20 gauge shotgun, and SKS. Calls WestJet, we're going out, how do we get them out there? Put them in a lock case and away you go. Geez, that's too simple. Put them in the lock case, register them at the Ottawa airport.
Yeah.
And they required a copy of the registration in the case, so there I am in the Ottawa airport at 6 o'clock in the morning, on a garbage can, having the case open with the guns exposed.
Yes, yes. That's a good
Yeah.
reminder to keep your registration papers outside of the
No, they
container.
required one to win the
In
container.
the container.
They required one
Okay.
to win the
Yes.
container. Anyway,
Mr. Chair, before we get to Bill Kennedy, could we take 5?
sure.
Thank you. Do we pause, Brian?
No, I'm trying to figure out
Or
how
we're
to
just
bring it back.
gonna, just let it go. Just let it go. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah,
I'm still live. I'm just trying to figure out how to get it back now.
that's okay. That's alrighty then.
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
I was directed by Mr. Martin, according to the minutes of council, to report back to council meeting, report to this council meeting. I did meet with the committee that was here at the last meeting. I met with Brett, but he's not part of the committee at least, and Don Bishop. We reviewed the work that was being done at down behind the creamery. After I had left that, as everyone knows, I'm not an engineer. I don't pretend to be an engineer. I'm uncomfortable saying that this is completely structurally that it's working. So I requested I am requesting that council does a peer review of the work to be done prior to myself taking this on, if you wish me to take the responsibility of it.
I think that's fair. I had been speaking with Councillor Rosner about another issue the other day, and I don't know whose idea it was, whether it was Jack's or Brett's, but whoever came up with this idea, I think it's a solid one. Cambium is they're our engineers. They're the people that. Oh, it was Brian's idea?
I think it was Brian's idea.
Oh, sorry.
Actually,
I think it was Brian from Bill.
Actually, it was mine.
It was your. Okay.
I went home after that meeting and I was very uncomfortable.
And
Very uncomfortable.
Totally understand.
And
absolutely.
that's why I said to
Yeah.
Brian, I called Brian up and I said, Brian, this is not going to work. And then I suggested that you do a peer review.
And Bill, thank you for that idea. I think that it makes a lot of sense. And the last thing we want to do is put you in an uncomfortable position, or a position where you feel that this is out of your scope of work.
But not only that, Jen, if, after this is said and done, council will own it.
Yes.
So you definitely want to make sure that it's
Done right.
It's right. And again, if it's reviewed and it's good, hey, no problem. If it's changes have to be made, that's what they'll be telling you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I agree with you on that, Bill, that it has to be reviewed, and it should be, it's going to become, we want it to become an asset, not a liability, basically, what this has to be, right? But I believe at the last general meeting, there was a motion put forward, right? That there's really not going to spend any more work on this until there's outstanding invoices are addressed. Is that?
So what I wanted to recommend today was that since both sides believe that they're right, then I would be perfectly comfortable that I will fundraise for the remaining balance of the 9,000 whatever difference. If needed, because I don't want the municipality to pay, I don't believe that they should pay, and I don't believe the group should pay. So at the end of the day, I said I just want this project to move forward, and I'll be happy to fundraise. And people are more than welcome. But I think actions speak a lot louder than words, and I'd be happy to raise. And you can hold that to me. We can pass a resolution tonight, but pretty much I'll make sure and I'll personally guarantee it. If the 9,000, if I don't fundraise it, then I'll just personally guarantee it. I don't come from a lot of money, but that's fine. I said I just want this project built because, for example, you drive up Highway 60 here. You have 4 properties that just sold. The house that's falling down up Highway 60, that's sold. The red brick one on the corner, that sold in one day. The 2 properties that pretty much have never had grass cutting for the last bunch of years, those sold very quickly. The market in Eganville is 18 to 30 days selling. A lot of houses selling very fast, and this is very exciting. These are families moving in. For example, in the apartments up on Wellington Street, there's 4 people for immediate move-ins there. So I think any way we can move progress in this town, and that's what I said, I'd be happy to pass a resolution tonight saying that I'll personally guarantee and I'll fundraise for that remaining balance. Because I don't want the group to pay, and end of the day, if the municipality's not paying it, then you know what? Then it's people like myself, private citizens that have to step forward and actually get stuff done.
And that's exactly where I was coming from when I offered to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that offer, and Dave and I will certainly contribute to that effort.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree. And I'm going to speak to this when I talk about the County of Renfrew and what we're dealing with. But at this point, this is becoming a bit of wasted energy.
Hmm.
We have things that are extremely, thank you for nodding along. I really appreciate that in the gallery. I really do. There are so many dire issues that we are dealing with right now. And I think if we can get past this noise, fundraise for the 9, get the peer review done so that Bill feels comfortable, then we will be able to move forward and have this as an asset to Bonnechere Valley.
Because I kind of look at it as that the peer review kind of takes it's pretty much up to the engineering firm to determine if it's a viable construction, viable everything that's good about it. They'll give the recommendations, and that takes it from our hands, which is really good. And the thing is we use that we use that company for absolutely everything we do. So my point, if we're questioning what that company is doing, then there's something mentally wrong. So that's why I would carry forward with the peer review.
Do we have any idea what the cost of a peer review is?
We don't have a hard and fast cost. Cambium is asking for a scope of work. So I was going to recommend that we get Brian to send that back to them.
They've estimated between 5,000 and 10,000, depending on how much information was readily available to them ahead of time.
And where does this come from?
Well, this would be us doing our due diligence for this long-term asset. So I think, like, for example, Tim, you brought up in the last meeting, they were concerned about liability issues and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So we had the engineer drawings, and you know what, structurally, like, very, very good moving forward. But you know what, if we want to do extra due diligence so that, you know what, we did everything we could to make sure this asset was viable, then I think this is an investment for us to bring in more people in this town and also to prevent something from ever happening.
Yeah, but shouldn't I'm thinking the peer review should be part of the design and engineering and all the other stuff to do with the project, no?
No, I don't think so. No, this is for our own safety.
I think so too.
And besides reviewing the integrity of the design of the dock, I would like to also have some thought or review given to the approach. I'm just afraid that being in a gully and the dock's going to be 2 feet higher, that we're going to end up with flooding down there.
Well,
I'm just worried about drainage.
yeah, well, Merv, I think realistically, the engineering drawings have to entail more than just the dock or the boardwalk or whatever you want to call it. It has to entertain, or it has to give you scope, slope. It has to give you how it's going to fit in. It's going to have to, it has to be a complete drawing package, right? It's not just one part of, right? Because you can't expect an engineering firm to commit to something when they don't know the flow of the water coming up, how it's going to be tied into the shore or the land. This is all stuff that I'm sure Cambrian's going to want. They're going to want a site plan drawing to go along with the engineering, and the site plan drawing can't be done basically a hand sketch. It has to have some slope. It has to have some angles. It has to have the proper the graticule to where the project's going in.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and that's why, like when we met with Bill, we answered a lot of questions, and pretty much like anything outside of that, the Cambrian does need, then obviously like Bill can provide it, right?
Yeah, but
So,
but the thing is, we can't all of a sudden give them drawings and then have them draw it, and then we're on the hook for it. They should have a detailed set of drawings that show all this detail, and that should be coming from the group.
Well, pretty much. It's
When we met, the drawing that council had seen, that was, we'd walked through that. On it was, elevation heights, like not on that drawing, but on when we had met, elevation heights of how the top of the deck was going to be, and then the slope back to the parking lot. See.
So is there new drawings that show this then, Bill?
No, it was actually the pictures, Jack, and the explanation that we went through. It was not in the drawings. But when we met, and it was more explained of how it was going to work, but it was not on, there was nothing on the drawing other than the picture showing on how the grades were going to come in and where the drainage was going to go.
Well, like any other firm, they're going to, for them to look at it and improve it, they're going to have basically not necessarily as built, but as designed drawings.
Yeah,
And drawing with a sketch and numbers, I'm sorry, they're not going to accept that, I'm sure. But I just don't want us to be on the hook to start spending money for them to take this and put a drawing on it. If we're thinking about, we're going to do this, we should have a list or a detailed package of drawings that show the dock, that show the fishing dock, that show how it ties into the landscape, you know, so that our engineering firm has something to look at. Because you and I both know, Bill, if they look at those hand sketch drawings, they're not gonna.
if not without coming and doing a site investigation.
Yeah.
Of what,
And that's gonna cost more.
If you were doing a roadway, you would have your build as is. So in other words, you're going back to exactly what it is, or else they would put down grade heights. So you would put in elevations and then you would follow your grade heights and so on. But they would do a pre-site of elevations. I know that when I met, there was a lot more explained to me that when I was sitting in the gallery back here prior to that, none of this was making sense. The drainage, just as Merv was saying, it wasn't making sense because I had a vision of a 2-foot wall and the water coming down and running all the way along that. That's not what the design is. When it's all said and done, the joists are down right on water level. Now they are in the water, so that part I do not know about. Like the engineers will tell you more of that. But the joists are down. The grade is a sloping grade back to the 10 feet, and it's back here basically hitting the pavement. So that's all just elevation. There's not a step up onto it. That's the way it was explained to me.
So just a clarification, what joists, you're talking the angle?
No, the floor joist or the roof joists of the long ones.
The trusses?
Trusses.
Then that will be in the ice then.
Well, from what, if the high water part of them will be in, but again, that's something that that's out of my scope.
But that's not, they said they wouldn't be in the water, so that's what I need. I mean, you need a drawing that details where they are, what height they are off the water right now, or what height they're going to be, and then you put into the 39 centimeter delta that you can come up, right?
Can I make a suggestion? Because again, we're getting into the weeds here. I think what we need to do is have Brian contact Cambium. They are trusted engineers. Ask them what they need. Whatever they need, we will do our due diligence and we will get them. I think that's our go forward move.
Yeah.
I think sitting here and talking about it over and over and over again doesn't help anybody.
Yes.
Can I make a suggestion?
Are you going to second my suggestion?
I just want to add one. In the future, any more projects that come forward, let's not put the cart before the horse. We're going to solve a lot of this hostility and debate by taking steps that this should have been done first. Before any action were happening on our property, this could have all been eliminated with practical thinking ahead of time and planning. This should not even be happening at our table the way it is. It's what's dividing it is somebody or somewhere starting before they should have.
Okay, and we realize that.
You know,
But now
so,
we need,
but in the future, I'm
need
just
to
saying,
move
any
forward.
more, and we are moving forward, but any future projects, we have to see this site plan, see the stuff ahead of time, get it in its entirety before we start pulling the trigger on things, because we are going to end up costing our residents money if we do such things. And I don't think it's fair to anybody to do that. And now we've got somewhat of a discrepancy in the way things are to go ahead. And I think we want to be productive in the next 3.5 years, not just argue about what's going to happen.
we don't have a choice, actually.
But what I'm saying is we can eliminate a lot of this part of our council by maybe starting from the number 1 position instead of 7 and going 100, right? Okay, guys, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks, Bill.
So, Mr. Martin, the package that was given to me, just so we're clear on this, package that was given to me is going to be forwarded to Cambium. They will review it. If they have any other information that they want, or actually they're going to get a price, are they going to come up with?
Yes.
before we go anywhere, a price will come back to council.
Yeah.
On,
And
on what they're,
And in my opinion, any additional drawings that are needed, I do not, at this point in time, want them doing the drawings. They request the drawings they need, and we should be providing them, because if we're going to have them start doing drawings, then our cost to evaluate this is going to be, who knows where it's gonna stop, right? We should be able to provide, if we give them these 2 drawings and these hand sketch drawings and they send back to you whatever, that's my opinion. Now, council might have a different opinion, but I don't want to be on the hook for just us doing drawings.
Just for paper, like, well, us getting together sake, but say Cambion has a quicker turnaround before the next meeting, then we already got the estimate from the 5 to the 10. So would it not be worthwhile to say anything that exceeds the 10,000, like contact, like council approval? That's how I look at it. That's all I was saying. Like, we already got the estimate.
I think for the future, everything should be going through council.
And even if we just needed to call a special meeting, 10 minutes, pass a resolution.
Perfect.
And then
It
we
has
can
to
do
go
that.
through council.
Yeah.
It has to go through
Yeah.
council.
And I want to see Camden doing a review, not designing it for them.
Well, that's what I mean.
That's-
That's
That's
why,
what we're.
that's why I don't want them doing drawings.
Yeah.
They're looking at the drawings, and if they're not adequate, we need this drawing.
Yep,
That's-
that's exactly
that's what
what it is. It takes all of us out of it, takes Bill out of it, and then it just puts it in
No,
Cambion.
but I just don't want to say, okay, you guys do the drawings, because we're not going to be doing that.
Nope. That's not
just
the intention. It's review.
It's like you guys aren't even listening to me. Didn't I say that 10 minutes ago?
We'd like to repeat.
We like to get the point clear.
Nobody's paying attention.
I will be in touch.
Okay, Bill, I just forwarded you an email about Bulow Beach.
Okay.
Okay, just about the gate.
You want me to pass on to Mr. McGrath?
Isn't it your gate or is it Rex gate?
Rex Gate?
My bad.
We'll, if he needs a hand, we'll. That's not a problem.
Okay. Sorry, I just thought because it's a road.
No, it ends there, the road doesn't, the road ends there. But that's good.
Well, just the
You're going to bring it up? He was going to talk about,
AT.
Oh,
did you have a comment on the ATV club signage?
Oh, yes, we sent an email back, the email came in. The only issue that we forward back was if they're doing signage, that they do not put it on our signs. That was really the only issue that we have. So, because sometimes you see, they'll put them on stop signs, they'll put them on road signs and stuff. But as long as they put them off in the ditch, there's no issues.
Put in their own poles, basically.
yeah.
Just a little side issue. Last Sunday, my sister lives across the road, called about a cloud of dust coming up where we did the washout.
Okay,
And before I got there, two side by sides with 2 males in each one went down to Bonnechere Lodge Road when I got there. They've been playing there. They've dug ruts on the rail track, on the railroad line. They've destroyed that nice grade that you left. So anyway, the ATV club has put up a no trespassing sign. If I haven't been there to look at it, but yeah, they ripped everything to hell.
little kids and big kids will all play.
There's no vaccination for stupid.
All right, if there is, we're gonna be millionaires.
All right, we'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Bill.
Okay, where are we? All the correspondence. Anybody have any comments on any of the correspondence?
I'm very happy with the support on the correspondence.
Yes, yes,
We already did correspondence.
Yes.
yes, we're very happy. Bill, give the boardwalk update. Okay, waste and recycling.
All right, so I thought that the invitation was to go to everybody. What they're saying is just due to the size of the venue, they're just asking for one person and one elected, one staff person. I'm very interested in this and I would like to go and bring back what McNabb side is finding out. This is a company out of Halifax that many of the county councillors went to visit when they were there for the FCM conference a couple of years ago. The technology seems solid, but it's I believe next Thursday. Brian, you're going as well. So I think Brian and I can bring back the appropriate information for consideration.
after having looked at the gas, the thing they built in Ottawa there that was a failure. I was trying to figure out from that just exactly what the heat source is going to be. The other thing that I think we would have to know is they're talking about 1 unit. Well, 1 unit won't cut it.
Yes, they're saying it will actually.
Well, what do you do when that unit breaks down? What do you do when the unit is down for maintenance?
But they have this issue in James Bay as well.
Well, yeah, but you
I
haven't
think
seen
there's two
James
different
Bay. I mean,
issues here.
this
There's one-
company,
one
this
is
company
the
that did plasma gasification, it adds that they did it all over the world. And I'm saying, we have the capabilities of sending a set of drawings across a pond. Why are we playing in Ottawa trying to figure it out?
So
These guys are saying we got it working all over. My view on that one is after what I've seen went on in Ottawa, hey, give us a price, we'll consider the price, you build it and show us it works, and then we'll pay you.
Okay, well, Brian and I can bring back the
And there
information.
are two different matters there. One of the issues was the email that we received, Jen, for the one from McNabb Braeside.
Yes,
But because we weren't hearing from them, I took initiative and reached back out to Eco Waste Solutions, who we talked to back in '07 when we were talking about waste landfill expansion and incineration. So their information, the EWS information, is actually in your packages as well. And they're more than interested in coming out to the county and speaking either with political or with staff likely in the fall.
okay.
Yeah. Again, going back a couple of years, Durham Region went, and they had problems. First of all, they couldn't get it hot enough to meet the environmental standards of pollution. Then they couldn't get it to produce electricity. So I'm, I'm very shy on something.
Well, I'm going to attend and see
Yeah.
what this technology is all about.
Yeah. Okay, we did the community chief building. We looked at the building inspector's report. Going to the library report. Any questions?
Yeah, would you do me a favor? When you go back to your next board meeting, would you ask if the librarian could forward this in a different format? It came in as photos. Sandra very kindly
Scanned images.
scanned images. Perhaps if we can just have her send it as a Word document that can be put in our package. I actually could not read it as it came up on our screen. So,
And the chief building official, when Murph was with respect to Mark.
Yeah, okay.
He's currently on leave till July. He'll be reevaluated in July. We have replaced him at the moment. Doug Schultz is coming in the evenings and doing permits for us. And Glenn Gordon is in on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, undertaking the required inspections for the 2 municipalities.
By the way, we're not having another meeting for September, but I'll call Judy, the chair, and suggest that the librarian,
that would be great.
rather than a scanned copy there.
Just email Brian
Send a
or
Word.
Sandra the report.
Thanks,
Look
Mayor.
at it. Municipal insurance.
Already did it. That was
Yeah,
Brian's
yeah,
report.
yeah.
I added it, not realizing that Brian was going to have a report on their desk. Sorry about that.
County Renfrew.
All right. Well, I will, I'm not going to be coy or shy here. I'm going to tell you that stuff at the County of Renfrew, basically, it's an everyday occurrence that we are meeting about one thing or another, or emailing back and forth different new legislation that's come forward. It's we got to a point where between our health committee and our social services committee, those committee times were being taken up solely with provincial financial impacts. And so what we did was we stood up a committee called the Health Services and Social Services Provincial Modernization Ad Hoc Committee. This committee is made up of myself as warden, the chair of our health committee is actually the chair of this committee, the chair of the Social Services Committee, our member on AMO, our member on Roma, and our member on FCM. So trying to cover all the bases. When we talked about for the last 6 months and probably before that, the importance of trying to find savings, trying to find efficiencies, sharing services. I will tell you that, again, we are not at the end, we're at the beginning. We are going to have to roll up our sleeves and we are going to have to figure this out. I will say that we have a few very large issues at the county level. Number one, I'm sure everybody's heard about the Ontario health teams. So sorry, let me go back. Everybody has heard about this 10, 10, and 10, right? Yep. So it was sort of introduced that we would have 10 Ontario health teams, we'd have 10 CAC centers, 10 paramedic services. I know that now the Ministry of Health has sort of dialed back on that. And I'll get to paramedics in a minute. What has occurred is that the 4 hospitals, well, RVH and St. Francis are sort of one, so the Highway 60 corridor. When the request for proposals went out, all 4 of our entities responded with their application. So Arm Prior submitted theirs, RVH with St. Francis submitted theirs, PRH submitted theirs, and the Deep River Hospital submitted theirs. Well, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that if you're talking even 30 across Ontario, there is no way that Renfrew County is getting 4 alone in our geographic area. The other thing in this is, if we're trying to find efficiencies, then aligning our hospitals is the way to go. This is sort of what the LHINs were intended to be years and years ago, but never really fulfilled their mandate. And so we at the county level are in support of these Ontario health teams. And what we are planning to do is, it's probably in the works today, is facilitate a meeting between those 4 CEOs of the hospitals to see if we can come to some amalgamated proposal. I will say that the work that each of them did that will not go to waste. Very important information went to the government. The provincial government did receive more than 150 proposals from across Ontario. We're not sure if that's good or bad, but that's the OHT portion. We do have a challenge with our long-term care homes because of the freezing of budgets from the 2018 year. We're going to be light about 200,000 between our 2 long-term care homes that we own in the county of Renfrew. The other challenge is that there is a letter went out, which I do not have, and I apologize. A letter went out about capping the salaries at long-term care homes. We are looking for clarification as to whether our municipal long-term care homes fall into that category or if they are in fact exempt. There are 2 portions of this report that came out that are sort of contradictory, so we're waiting to hear about that. Paramedics. So when our new members first started, one of the very first things I did was I took you outside to show you our PRUs, our paramedic response units. This is a role model for not only across Canada or across Ontario, but across Canada, and is actually across the world. Our community paramedicine program is so important. We also have a RAT, which is our rescue team. We have a Sierra team. We have a drone. We do more with our paramedic services to keep people in their homes, out of ERs, out of the launch. Sorry, I get very passionate about this. More than you could ever imagine. And I'm going to leave one of these on the desk here for you guys to look at. But I do want to just read you a couple of stats that are here on page 25. This is a very comprehensive document, by the way, that we will be drilling down to a page long for the AMO conference. Because of our community paramedicine, remote patient monitoring, these are the stats. 42% reduction in 911 calls. 40% reduction in ER visits, which is the most expensive healthcare we have, by the way, is emergency rooms. 32% reduction of hospital admission. 41% reduction, 30 days readmission. 540% return on investment from this program, and 90% improved quality of life. You know, you can say whatever you want, you know, you can throw things around, but when you see hardcore stats like that, the idea of going with a regional paramedic service does not work for the County of Renfrew. It just does not work. And so we did have a meeting with Minister Yakubuski yesterday, and we said that we are going to try and find solutions, not problems. And one of the ways we do that is that we create information like this to show the government this works for us, but we're fine, say, in reorganizing the Ontario health teams. Long-term care, could you fund us for this year? We'll figure it out going forward. We made it very clear that we are very willing and able to work to make sure that we can find some savings, but there are certain things where the proof is right here. And so I will be bringing back one of these for long-term care, Ontario Works, ODSP, and childcare in the very near future. This was the first one that was produced. And I cannot thank our paramedic chief and the staff. Oh, and if you look through it, there are no stock photos. These are actual photos of our paramedics. And I'm going to say it one more time. What they're doing is very different than the previous model of paramedic service, where they'd sit in a hall, wait for a call, get into the AMBO, and go to the call. When they're not working, they are checking on our most vulnerable. They are a first-line defense to our very expensive healthcare system that we just can't afford anymore. But we can't afford to lose this particular aspect or faculty in the County of Renfrew.
Are we the only place in Ontario that's doing that right now?
There are more now, but we were the leaders. Yes.
Good.
So yeah, I'll leave one here. I will just say that, as I said earlier, you know, when we're getting into the weeds on some of these projects, we really need to keep sight of what we're doing at this table. This is, we are at a point now, we're 6 months into the year. Somehow, guys, we need to come up with some innovative ideas, because I guarantee that we are going to see reductions or a change in the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund. I think we better be ready for 4%. I think we as a council need to keep that number in our heads. It could be more, might be less. We are a rural environment. You know, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. I am extremely hopeful that there is no cabinet shuffle prior to the AMO conference in August. It's imperative that the ministers that are sitting in their respective ministries right now are able to answer questions, because it has been a very confusing time. That, you know, rolling out something and then retracting it sort of leads to, you know, the ultimate confusion. Minister Yakubuski said that they are, you know, they want the message to be clear. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is that the number one thing we asked the minister yesterday was that when there is consultation, we want to be at the table. We want to work with the government. We want to figure it out. We want to be able to present plans and come up with solutions that will save the taxpayers' money. And the last thing we want is for any of these reductions in financing to land on the property tax bill. So it is not only up to the county councillors at the County of Renfrew, it is up to every single municipal council to roll up their sleeves and get to work and figure out how we're going to make this work. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Sorry, it's very fresh. This meeting, so we stood the committee up. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago. Then we had a special meeting of county council on Wednesday. And then we had another meeting yesterday. So that's the speed at which this is moving. We didn't want to wait for announcements or for them. I mean, they might not be sitting again until October. So we wanted to be proactive about this and be able to have a meeting with our MPP and minister and say, you know, this is the work that we've done so far. And I'm very proud of the people that are sitting on this committee, great critical thinkers and willing to move this ahead very, very, very quickly, which right now I believe time is of the essence.
So what was your feedback from your meeting with Mr. Yakubowski?
Our feedback on this?
Yeah.
Well, he didn't actually have a chance to read it, obviously.
No,
I handed it to
no,
him
but
as he
he's
came in the
aware.
room.
But he's aware of it.
Oh, absolutely. And when I actually did the paramedicine that was my speaking part. And obviously, you know, Yak doesn't need anybody to tell him how amazing our paramedics are. But I think he was very happy to have the stats at hand. You know, the meeting flowed very nicely with him because we started out with with the OHTs and with long-term care. And so this is one of the answers to the shortage of beds. This is one of the answers to keeping people out of the emergency rooms. It's not the whole answer, obviously. We need doctors and we need nurses and we need our hospitals. But this program deals with our vulnerable in their homes as they need them. And you know, just wellness checks. You know, you don't have to go to the emergency room for a wellness check for your diabetes. The paramedics will come to you. You know, they'll check your blood pressure, which I think I need right now. They'll you know, they do so much more with so much less. And I just think that this is great.
Yeah.
And if you're ever using social media, I'm just going to give you a couple of things here. We are asking that counselors use hashtags, hashtag more pay, less say, and hashtag we should talk. So I can send you those. The reason, obviously, we should more pay, less say is obvious. It's an obvious one, but the hashtag we should talk was the #1 thing we left Minister Yakubowski with yesterday, is that we want to be part of the consultation, not just communication, the consultation. You know, there's always the fear of the urban centers. They're the ones that traditionally sit at the table. So we need our partners with AMO and Roma to ensure that they understand, and it's great because a lot of them are rural, but that they understand our needs here in rural Ontario and Eastern Ontario. Yeah.
Anything else, Ken?
No, that's about all my blood pressure can take for one day. Thank you.
Jack?
Yeah, media, I just, I read the paper there this past week when I got it. I was just surprised at a comment that was made by yourself there, Councillor Patrick, when it says that basically, Councillor, here, I'll just read it so then you can comment on it. Councillor Brent Patrick has been the liaison person between the two groups, and he told the EAC-DCG meeting Wednesday, I'm assuming that's the following day after our meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the township had a change of heart and has decided to have engineering plans for the 2 water projects vetted by their own engineers. When we left the meeting on that Tuesday night, ever hear, I don't remember us talking about going to vetted engineers or anything on that. So
No,
I'm just wondering if that quote is correct or not.
there's that conversation I had with the group is that it would be coming to the table. They would be looking to do a peer review of the engineering project. So that's,
How would you know that on Wednesday at noon? The rest of the council knew nothing about it.
well, I spoke with Brian prior, and he said that I think it's, if they're comfortable with like municipality doing a peer review, it makes sense. It takes everything out of the picture, and that if everything came to this table, so I don't see what the difference is.
Well, no, it's just, we weren't, like, people watched the video
Mm-hmm.
and then they read the paper and then they said, what are you talking about? Softening your heart and all this. And I said, I know nothing about this meeting. At that time, council was not informed about peer review until today. That's all I'm concerned about.
Well, no, as I approached the group that we're looking into doing a peer review. Makes common sense. I was going to come to council. We were going to get the price of it. I think that makes logical sense. I don't see where the confusion is. The paper gets put out like the following week. Like there's no discussion. Never said that council is all in consensus for it or moving forward with it. It was going to come to this table. My recommendation as a group was don't shut down. I said don't shut down. Let it come back to council. Let's get Bill to meet with Dawn and Claude, review the project, and everything end at this table. So I don't see where the confusion is.
Okay, so I would say, Councillor Patrick, I appreciate the proactive nature of asking Brian, as our CAO, to get something in writing so that we at least know where Cambium stands. I would say though, that we should all be refraining for speaking for that this is a great lesson learned at the County of Renfrew as well, where even as warden, I don't speak for 17 people.
Mhm.
And I just got caught in that with the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus resolution, and obviously I don't speak for the County of Renfrew, but I just.
Well, we learned that at our table before at the roads department, we were saying that the dinner and bridge moving forward, and before my meeting on the Wednesday, we had the email about the barbecue, and I'm sure you'd want to speak to it, just saying that it wasn't direction of council to do a barbecue on the bridge. So that's the thing. So
That's right.
It wasn't an intention. It was a fact finding to keep the group together, saying, hey, you know what? This is a great idea. There's a lot of personal feelings involved in the boardwalk project. A peer review makes total sense. And that's what I said. So let's bring it to the table. I think it's logical.
No, I understand that being logical, but if you're going to do that and be quoted that, you should at least, sorry, Tim. Sorry.
I don't believe I was quoted in it.
Well, yeah, it's quoted in there.
Yes, I was confronted by the same statement too. So,
well, I think,
as council had made, I think what it really, before we, we're fairly new yet, a few of us here. It didn't look good that I had to explain that I had no idea what you were talking about. The people out there that said, I watched the council. When did this take place? They wanted to know, and it didn't happen.
You know what, Tim? You know what I said?
That's all. I mean, I've seen the same thing. So what
I said at the last meeting, I said I think a lot of these like if a resident calls you and they have a question on it, why don't they just call me? Secondly, a lot of these things, like I would have been happy to explain that over a phone call very soon. If you want to bring it to the public, that's fine. I said I just think
probably for the most part in the future.
Can we raise our hand? I'm not trying to, but let me finish. And end of the day, I said I think a lot of the things that we're bringing to the table can be dealt with simple conversation or private. Or when I email before, say the previous meeting, say, hey guys, if you have any questions between the boardwalk, I'd be happy to walk it through. I said I think these are things that are very simple that we can do with a simple phone call. I have a cell phone. Please call me.
Just standing behind what Jen says, before we go to the press or the media, if we're speaking for council, we better be speaking for council. That's all I ask.
And this is one reason that in some councils, only the head of councils or the designate speaks for the council table, and I don't want to be that mayor. And I think that you are all perfectly capable of
That's-
doing media without a problem. You don't need to be babysat at all. You know what, Brent, this is lesson learned.
I
you know,
wanted to,
it caused some confusion.
But the problem, but the thing is I go as a liaison to the group, and this is at a public group conversation. Hey guys, this is a good solution. I said, this wasn't a conversation with the media. Like, this was the fact that this was in a public meeting. I said, so that's what I'm confused over. It's not like I went and called and say, hey, Debbie, here's an interview. I'm just confused, but we can move forward with it. I just think that a simple phone call, if you had residents call you, call me. I had 7 phone
well, I
calls.
got
from
emails. too.
Residents email.
Right.
I'd be happy to answer anything. I'm very open. It's just a simple conversation between councilors or mayor. If you have a specific question, training, something comes on paper.
I'm just adding to
Be
the
happy.
conversation. Well,
And it's unfortunate, you know what? We make mistakes.
Mhm.
Sometimes the media makes mistakes. And we have to push through. It's unfortunate. But we have to remember that the business of this council gets done at this table. It does
Yes.
not, it does not get done via email. It does not get done via phone calls. It is at this table. And that's why I said earlier about the price from Cambium. Even, we're not going to charge the public, but even if we have a 10-minute meeting to debate the pros and cons of Cambium, that's what we should do.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that that's the comment that I received is, when did this meeting take place? Did you do an engineering drawing? I said, I don't know. I know nothing about it.
And that's a problem.
And that's the problem.
That is, I will say, if it appears that it looks like we are having meetings that weren't either publicized or weren't public, that's where, and I understand that apparently this meeting's brought to us by the ombudsman. That's when I was trying to create a little levity here.
It was the only thing I could grab quick.
Or the integrity commissioner. I mean, that's the thing that lands people in hot water. And so we never want to be perceived as, or forget, even perception is reality.
Mhm.
And I never want anybody at this table to go through an integrity commissioner complaint or to be investigated by the ombudsman's office for something that we didn't do. So I think it's lesson learned. That's all it is. You know, I've made tons of mistakes over my 9 years sitting, or 8.5 years sitting in this chair.
I agree with your statement full-heartedly to have it vetted by engineers, but we should have known before. That's all I'm saying. The rest of council should have known, right? We just knew it as of today.
You know what?
Yeah.
You went to the CAO,
Yeah,
you got something proactive done.
Yeah.
It's.
I don't know. I'm just trying to
it's-
find solutions, and I'm perfectly fine with it. I think we're better off moving forward and getting stuff done for the taxpayer, not wasting time. That's
This
my
is the other
opinion.
thing. This is another noise, guys. We really, you just heard my very impassioned speech. We really need to get down to the business of this municipality and whatever we can do in the county of Renfrew with our neighbors.
Okay. Good. Media.
So I heard Bill saying earlier on today that he was the one who had the idea and went to the CAO about the engineer, about having another engineer look at the drawings. Right? That's what it sounded like you said today?
Brought the issue up, yes.
Yeah, okay. So the only question that I have is, I was just wondering, like, how much money the municipality has already invested into the boardwalk project?
The cost of the land that we acquired, and that was all. We have no other money invested in it.
Okay, and how much was that, just for the public record there, Brian?
$10,000.
10,000? Okay. And so then you guys are passing the resolution to do between 5 and 10 for Cambium to do a review of the drawings, right?
Not today, we're
You're
not.
not? Okay.
No. This is what I just said. So once the scope of work is sent to Cambium, they will be able to give us a more accurate
Okay.
amount. that decision will be made at a council meeting.
So it has not, like, because Brian was saying it was between 5 and 10, so you guys are gonna wait till you have a better idea?
That's a pretty broad amount,
Oh, I
between
agree.
5 and 10.
Yeah,
So I think if Brian can deal with Cambium and send them the scope of work, I think we'll have a much better idea and can make a much more informed decision.
okay,
I wouldn't be comfortable in saying, sure, yeah, if it's between 5 and 10, it's fine.
okay.
That's just, that dog doesn't hunt.
And I'm not trying to, keep beating on this, but I mean, it is something that our ratepayers are interested in as well. And I also know, like, at our last meeting, like, you guys were discussing the summer meetings, and we're not gonna be meeting as regularly now in July and August, right? So it's just the timing factor that I'm looking for, I guess, with that then, because I mean, if they're gonna have to get an estimate coming back, and I can't remember when the July meeting was.
Well, we said we do an
Anybody remember?
emergency and not charge the
Yeah.
taxpayer.
Yeah,
So the July meeting is the second Tuesday of the month.
right,
And yes, I think if we meet for 10 minutes,
yes,
very quick, I mean, we would put out proper notification 48 hours in advance.
right.
But I'm sure that we can meet for 10 minutes and not charge the taxpayer to make a decision on behalf of the taxpayers.
Good, just because I know, as everybody does, like, that if you do want to do anything in the water, there's like only a specific time
Yeah.
period that you're allowed to be in there. And, we're at June something. right?
July, I believe it's July 12th to October 3rd, is that it? I don't
July-
know the
Yeah,
exact
I don't
date.
know,
July,
but I know
July
it
6th
is-
was when
it is
Mary
a sort of-
would give us the
Yeah.
permission to go.
So, no, I was just looking for clarification on that, because I do try to be accurate. And I also, I apologize to Mayor Jen for misquoting her on the budget story, and we'll have a correction in on that, because she did say, have it for the record, that staff had been asked to do a 10% decrease, not an increase.
Thank
And
you.
that was a typo, and I am more than happy to
Yeah, if
that
you,
correction on the record and on the YouTube.
thank
Okay,
you.
all right.
If you guys think you got phone calls and emails about the peer review, you would not believe the amount of
But
phone
the
calls.
rest of the story did show that the budget, you guys were being, really good at
I know.
trying to keep the budget in check.
And
which
Dan and
I
Marlene
appreciate.
clapped. I mean, come on.
We almost had a standing ovation.
Yeah.
No, but it was also the
No, I know.
placement of the word
Yes.
increase was at the top of a column right under the headline.
Like I
And so-
said, I apologize
No
for that,
worries.
and there will be a correction.
Thank
in,
you.
Because, yeah. So
But
anyway.
I agree. If you read the article,
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
the whole theme was that, you guys were trying to keep things sort of,
yeah.
In
like,
line.
yeah, right?
And it was the second article. You put one on
No,
the
I
front
know.
page the
Yeah.
week before.
Yeah, but that was the longer budget. So anyway, that's my last question / comment. Thanks.
Okay,
Right.
there's, I guess Steve wants to be in on this closed session.
See, before a different one, I guess, right? We have,
Okay,
we'll do our first close first. And,
okay.
Take 5.
Yes,
yeah,
please.
you look for, yeah. Okay. 5
Nope, we're good.
minutes.
Oh, we got through today, tickety boo.
Quicker than I thought.